What's up, everyone? Batcraft. That's right. It is not just Batcraft. It is the final episode of Batcraft, at least for me. And as I hover over New York Town, I thought, what better way to kind of close out the series than really just kind of do an overview of what this series was. That's what I did last season, and yeah, looking forward to doing that today. And it all began right here. No, wait. No, it didn't. It all began right here. Yeah, that's right. Yorktown. Because as you may recall, I started off the season with a goal, which was I wanted to be the world's greatest hero. And so I needed to find a town that needed a hero. And yeah, this was the town that definitely needed a hero. And unfortunately, I was not that hero. Yeah, no, as you can see, there's literally just random raw meat floating around in a house. This is crazy. I actually haven't been here in forever. Wow. Yeah. So I did a very bad job of saving this town. Hi, guy. How's it going? You're the last sole survivor of Yorktown. Yo, what's up, man? You're the one. You're iRobot. Congratulations. I feel like we need to get you something. There you go. That's for you and for Yorktown. But yeah, no. So yes, the goal was that we were going to go and be a hero to this town, and we were going to do so by relocating them to what would end up becoming New York Town. That was the idea. This was the concept, and it was going to be cool too. We were going to have a kind of a bridge that we were going to have right here with our starter base built on top of it, and it was going to be great. There's just one problem with this whole plan. This area right here was going to be where I was going to put New Yorktown. And in fact, as you can see, I kind of started-ish. I mean, look, there's even a sign and everything. This was going to be New Yorktown. In fact, I believe we've got residents of New Yorktown. Hey guys, how's it going? Y'all doing okay in there? Yeah, y'all are doing fine. Yeah, so this was going to be New Yorktown, but the problem that I ran into was that this is not nearly as flat as I had hoped. Now, in hindsight, I probably could have just built on top of this area and just like raised up all my building plans by a little bit, and it would not be nearly as much work as I thought. But as I started to attempt to flatten the land, let's see this, yeah, back here, I realized just how much work it was going to be. Now, I know that like Knight in particular and everybody who worked on Arkham looks at this and is like amateur. And yeah, no, I was an amateur. I was not here. I didn't want to spend a good portion of my series, especially at the beginning, just flattening out land. I didn't have time for that kind of thing. So yeah, I couldn't make this work. I did all of like 2, 3, 4 rows, and that's it. Then I was like, this is not happening. This is not working. I cannot make this work. I'm sorry, New Yorktown, but you are not going to be the home of the world's greatest superhero. So I abandoned this place. I completely abandoned it, and I purchased some new land from Kyle. Yeah, in honor of those that came before. So as you may recall, I had a hard time figuring out where exactly I was going to put my base. I looked everywhere. This was a really rough seed to work with, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. I couldn't figure out where it was. And then finally I came up with this whole area of land that would ultimately become New Yorktown. The only problem was it was very close to where Kyle had put his base, which was literally right here. And so I made a deal, I want to say in the first or maybe perhaps second episode of the series of Batcraft with Kyle, who was gracious enough to, in fact, sell me the land for just a few books. So that was awesome. That was awesome. I acquired all of this great land right here and started building my starter base. Now, one thing I don't think I realized at the time was just how close this was going to bring us to where Will was planning on building his base, right? Like literally that brought us right up to the edge that even led to something of a Cold War. That was fun. That was a fun little bit. But that, of course, gave us exactly what we needed to begin working on our starter base. That's right. Our optimal prime moving truck right here. Now, I was really excited when I finally came up with this idea for a base to do it inside of a big moving truck. I thought it was great. It was kind of thematically hinting at where I was going to be taking my base this season. And, you know, originally I think I made mention that, you know, I didn't really have a plan for it being inspired by any particular, you know, character. It's just I thought a moving van would be a really cool place to build a starter base. And then, as you need a color palette, it all started coming to me, and I realized, okay, yeah, we need to go with more of like a Transformers theme here, and it worked out very nicely. Now, obviously, this is a recreation of the original starter base, because the original starter base was way over there in that tunnel, and it was kind of coming out. I knew that there was going to be some sort of bridge. I didn't quite know where it was going to curve to and that sort of thing. But we ended up moving the starter base here just so that it could have a better view of it from Main Street. And I think that was a really good move. I'm very proud of how this build turned out. As you see, if we kind of like bust on the inside, the base is fully empty. I moved everything out and moved it into what would, ultimately become my main base for the season as a whole, which is the Orpheum. But yeah, this worked out really well. I've got a lot of builds that I'm extremely proud of this season, and this is certainly one of them. By comparison, it's much more simple, but it was just so fun. I loved this as a starter base. Thank you, Optimal Prime Moving Truck. You did great. But like I said, that was originally over here on this bridge that we had coming out of this tunnel right here. And at the time, the tunnel didn't go to anywhere. It just kind of like, kind of looked like Optimal, our Optimal Prime truck was going to like, woo, drive right on off. But underneath it, it gave us what we needed to start up a little bit of a wheat farm going. And then we could kind of grow some trees. We had some wool over here as well. Just a couple of items that we needed to really get started. And, we could begin working on our first farms, which would be our hospital, which was going to be our villager breeders. And then also our all foods, which is where we were going to have our trading happening. Now, I knew from previous seasons that he who controls villagers in early game controls all the diamonds in early game. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was aggressively working on trying to get these two farms up. And I'm very pleased with how they turned out. These are some of the few buildings in New York Town that are not necessarily based off of places, or at least not based off of anything that is like, I'm personally connected with. Admittedly, All Foods is taken directly from a Whole Foods design store, and I just changed the color scheme from blue to green. And then with our hospital, the Mother Martha Hospital, I used kind of a color scheme that was very similar to a hospital that used to be in downtown Memphis, but is literally that's it. It's just really kind of the orange and white motif was really what I pulled from that, but nothing else. And so these two buildings were great, and they kind of helped to get things started for our little city that we ended up creating. Aesthetic was going to be really important to me this season. I wanted to make sure we were about form over function, but at the same time, we did want to make sure that there was some function, and that was certainly the case here. Now, speaking of farms, we also had the Hotel Le Pavillon. And I want to talk about this particular building right here, because not only is it based off of a really cool building in New Orleans, but it also provided us with our mob farm. Now, there has been some tweaks that I've actually made to this build off camera. In fact, during the, Earth 2 bow arc, I needed some skulls. I needed some skulls from some mobs, specifically from skulls, so that they could be the helmets for the Court of Owls. And yeah, I didn't have a really good way of getting that. So what I did was I converted the mob farm. Originally, the mobs would spawn up there. They would fall into kind of this, furnace, this cooker of a bunch of, campfires and that sort of thing. And then the drops would go through a funnel system into the back. Well, what I did was I tweaked it. I removed all that so that the mobs now fall directly down. Now, admittedly, it's not happening right now, and I don't know why. I feel like something's broken. Hang on. All right, I don't know if that fixed it or not, but perhaps we'll see. Anyway, the point is that now the mobs fall directly down. I also glassed up the kind of, entryway right here so that you could kind of see them fall down, and it would be very cool, especially because this is my final episode, if it actually did it. Oh, it's about to do it. Okay, yay, okay, now it's starting to work. There we go. They all go raining down below. Apparently things are acting very laggy, and that just seems appropriate for the finale. But what I had here was a system there where I would capture a creeper, keep it here. During a lightning storm, I would strike, turn it into a charged creeper, and then send it down into the place where all of our mobs are falling, which is right here. Now, at the moment, when they fall, they just fall and they die because it's far enough that that's going to happen. And then all of the drops are collected in the system behind us. In fact, one of them apparently just did. But when I wanted to create some charged creepers, or when I wanted to create some, some heads with the charged creeper, I would just press this button right here. Water would distribute. And when the mobs fall, they fall into the water. They get pushed into a little blast chamber over there where they will await. Oh, fine. Okay. All right. There you go. There you go. There's one guy. Go for it. He's going to go over there. He's going to press down into the blast chamber, and boom. He is there now awaiting the fate of the charged creeper coming down, which would go down. I would blow it up, and I would get a bunch of heads. It was great, and it worked out really well. So my haunted hotel mob farm worked out flawlessly, and it was really, really great. Now, right next to it, we've got the location for the Sleep No More in New York City. And it's a basic looking hotel, to be honest. I mean, like, if you look at a lot of buildings in New York, you're going to find a lot of basic looking buildings, and this is certainly one of them. But it's about what's inside that counts. In New York, you're going to find an immersive experience. Here, you're going to find a wolf farm. So I'm glad with how this turned out. This one right here. Now, I want to talk about this building in particular, okay? This is, of course, the City of York pub, which is based out of London. This building is actually more important than you might realize. It is responsible for the entire theme of what became this season of Batcraft and what I basically did with my base. I was in my test world. It was near the end of Flashcraft, and I was kind of coming up with some different design ideas that I might want to play around with for the next season. And in so doing, I created this building. And when I did, I was kind of blown away. In fact, originally, I was going to use this as a shop. I was thinking about doing like a potions type of shop for this season and that sort of thing. And I thought, well, I'll do it in a pub. And how cool would it be if it was a pub that was based out of, out of real life, out of the real world. And I chose the City of York because I thought it was such a cool old building. And then I created it, I thought, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. What if I did an entire city of buildings that I know from, my life? I think that would be really great. And so, yes, this is actually responsible for, creating or at least inspiring the entirety of New York Town and what this base became. I'm super proud of this because this is one of the buildings that doesn't just look good on the outside. It also looks really great on the inside. I love the interior. The one thing I'm sad about is these guys. So sometime during this season, Minecraft updated so that these guys could now pathfind their way out of kind of the setup that I had. Originally, these guys could just wander in here. There were two of them. They could wander around. It wasn't a problem. But then things changed, and now they can get up and escape. And so I had to keep this guy kind of locked in, and we lost his buddy. But that's okay. It is what it is. But I really love the interior for what this is. Another problem, so to speak, is that they updated and I guess fixed the hack that we were all using for potions. And so, yeah, this just kind of became a lava and water generator for me. Lofty goals, but it still looks pretty. And this is in no particular order, I should say, as I'm kind of like looking and reminiscing. We've got these buildings right here, which I completely lifted from another Minecrafter whose name I could not find. In fact, I screen captured it, I think from Pinterest. And then I never found the user. I never found who actually created these. So if this is your design, please let me know. Please put it in the comments because this was awesome and ended up being kind of a cool way for me to connect a bedroom with kind of the Orpheum, which really kind of became my main base collectively. Now, originally, my thought was that I was going to be based out of this building right here, which of all of these is probably the one that holds the most personal significance. This was a condo building in New Orleans, one that my grandparents had for many, many years. And I had, I was able to visit when I was a kid and even as an adult was able to visit. And specifically their condo was the one on the second floor. So that second floor balcony, I have just so many great memories from the real world. And I thought, how cool would it be to actually build that in Minecraft? And when I figured out a way to kind of mimic the brick color by merging the two, these, I think it's jungle wood right here with the bricks and the granite. It looks so great and perfect and wonderful. And yeah, but it was just positioned, ironically, in a part of the city that I didn't use all that much. And so I ended up not using this at all. I did do some interior. I tried to give it a very similar layout to what their apartment was. Now, admittedly, this back here is a bedroom in real life and not like an enchanting area. But, everything else is about right. The couch, the TV, the kitchen area, and then the dining area. And then, of course, the balcony itself. And we turned that top third floor into an event space, but we never really did anything beyond that, huh? It's, it's just wait for you to rent it out. That's what it is. It's wait for you to rent it out. Speaking of which, we also rented out some space in New York Town as well. We got to give cred to Dr. Alien, who rented out the top floor of this building. Yeah, he did a really great job with this interior. I think this turned out really well. Also, it has this little balcony in the back. This was one of my favorite of the condos that we made in these two buildings. This was probably one of my favorites, and he really did a great job with it. Okay, man, highlights. There's just so much. There's just so much. You know, maybe I should talk a little bit about some disappointments. The Lotco building right here did not do what I had hoped it would do. This building right here, the Lotco building in particular, was just absolutely one of the most frustrating buildings to get right. I thought it would be cool to have something that was, you know, kind of like a Y shape essentially, and give it a little bit more depth and kind of give the feel to there being more buildings, because as I was going, you know, we had this kind of like flat row of buildings from Main Street, which makes sense. I mean, that's typically how things look. But I wanted, especially around the corner, when you look over, for there to be some depth. And it never quite did what I wanted it to do. And then on top of that, the interior, I mean, like as you can see, we kind of messed around with color and that sort of thing. But again, the interior just never really became anything. At least not on the top floors. I mean, admittedly, the lobby is pretty good. Yeah. You know, we had kind of this little source flower block for kind of our kind of color factory and whatnot. So, okay, all right. So the lobby was actually pretty good. So in hindsight, maybe I shouldn't be so hard on myself. That building, though, was another kind of disappointment. I mean, the style I like, but it just is kind of boring. And then, of course, this is like the biggest flaw. This is like the biggest flaw in all of New York Town. How do you get into this building? Riddle me this, Batman. How on earth does anybody get into this building? Look, there's no doors. I never actually built the first floor of the building. And while it does kind of add to the skyline, which is really where my main concern was, yeah, it's just a floating, hovering building that makes absolutely no sense. I think that this one's safe to say this is my biggest disappointment. Unlike this over here, which ended up being a kind of a surprise favorite of mine, the trolley station. This was never part of the plan for New York Town. This just kind of ended up happening. I was taking a trip to New Orleans last year, and yeah, I just got really inspired by the trolleys and thought, how cool would it be if this year we actually had a trolley station? And I'm really glad this turned out exactly the way that it should, because it provides some transport to and from New York Town that fits that feel of just kind of, you know, personal things I think are cool or just have some good memories about. But Main Street as a whole was really the beginning. Like, that was really the start. And I'm going to come back to the Orpheum in just a minute. But getting this street right from all angles was something that was very important to me. But I also knew that we had to fill it out beyond just Main Street. We needed this to feel, in order for it to feel like a full city or a full town, it needed to have more of like a square. And I actually do like kind of showing this off at night because it does kind of feel right, especially like with the lighting on the buildings and that sort of thing. But there was always this other side, what kind of became phase 2 of New York Town. I don't know, it just kind of ended up being a little bit of like the kind of side that's here mostly to help Main Street look even better. Now, don't get me wrong, because I'm very proud of how these buildings turned out. Like, I think it's cool that we got some graffiti on the backside of the Podastery building, which I haven't even talked about quite yet. And I really like this energy building right here from Houston, which is really cool. It's one that whenever I go downtown and I see this building, it always immediately brings me to New York Town because of it. And I love that we use this little Italian hotel as well, and the surprise entry of this building right here. I think it's Kimbrough Towers, if I'm remembering the name of it, from Memphis, which is really nice. It's a cool design. It was one that really lends itself to Minecraft, I think. But ultimately, like, these buildings as a whole was just really like, all right, I need something right here to give a little bit more of a backdrop to the city. And because that's the case, while at the very least most other buildings serve some kind of purpose, these really don't have anything inside them at all. They're completely empty. Like, look at this. Ouch. There's just nothing on either buildings. I mean, yeah, we did kind of put the little pizza place bakery a little bit right there. And, you know, obviously we ended up creating multiple doors for this building right here, which has absolutely nothing in it. I put a nether portal going out just so that it has, like, at least some, I don't know, the sense that there is some purpose going on here. And also to add, like, a nether portal on the other side of the city so that no matter where you are, you can get there. But ultimately, yeah, this mostly just serves as backdrop. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? When you're building something this massive, when you're building out a city, yeah, you're going to need some buildings that are just going to serve as backdrop. And that is okay. Now, this right here. So when I was thinking about what this place what was going to be, right? Like I knew I wanted some kind of Coliseum. And originally, my goal was to create this into kind of a Pokemon Coliseum, right? Like this was going to be like very styled after like an actual Pokemon Coliseum. I wanted a banner right here with a Pokeball on it and everything. And, you know, really kind of playing into the fact that this is a giant dome. Now, again, this giant dome is based off of a real location from my life, which is the dome that my college had as part of its gymnasium. But yeah, you know, and it actually looks fairly solid from that standpoint. And, you know, I did put essentially what is a Pokemon, you know, field right here in the middle. We've got the red and blue going on. So we have a little bit of the merger of the two. Big shout out to Bell for helping make this build happen. And it's appropriate too, because like we went to college the same place. And yeah, although I don't know that he ever climbed to the top. That was the big thing in school. Some of us climbed to the top of the dome. We wrote our name on the top. And I guess my name is still up there even today, but I have no idea. There were a lot of names up there. I will never forget when I climbed this thing, like me and the guy that did it, we were like, oh, you know, we thought we were so original. And then you get up to the top and you find the names of all the other people who have climbed it in the past. Of course, we have the library right there. This again was actually going to be a design I came up with a long time ago. And my thought was that this might end up being a shop that I was going to put in Gotham for selling books, selling enchantments and that sort of thing. But didn't end up doing it. Liked it a lot. You know, went with a different theme for Gotham and ended up really, really liking this design. So yeah, it is the new New Yorktown Public Library. And then of course we've got the beach. Now this was actually inspired. I took a trip with my wife to Cancun and we had a lovely time. It was very, very nice. I remember actually being at the resort and looking around at all of the architecture thinking like, man, some of this would translate to some pretty cool like spots in New Yorktown. And I thought I might do that, but if I do that, I need a beach. And so I decided just to kind of create a little bit of a beach biome all into itself right here, you know, connected to the city. And this ended up being actually more of the city limits than anything else. I mean, at one point I did consider like a Tony Stark-esque condo kind of right out here or something like that. But yeah, in the end, this is just kind of a public beach. And I think it actually works out pretty well. It's a nice kind of wraparound for the stadium. And then also, you know, you do feel kind of separate from the city, but also connected enough to it that, let's say that you lived in one of the condos and you wanted to kind of take a day, you drive down, you park, and then you come out to the beach, and you have yourself a grand old time. Now, and one thing I did not do that I had wanted to do, I had wanted to clear out these little two islands and actually put a ship here. As you may recall, late into the season, I started promoting out for a project I was working on called Find Eversail, the Pirate's Daughter. And unfortunately, that project did not get the funding that it needed in order to take off the ground. Now, hopefully I'll be able to do it in some form or fashion sometime later on down the road. There's other projects to do in the meantime. It's no big deal. But regardless, my thought was that if that project had taken off, my goal was to kind of clear this out and put a giant pirate ship right here in the bay, in the harbor, or whatever you want to call this. And I thought it would be pretty cool to do, but sadly it was not to be. And so these two islands just kind of remain. Although this was the place where we found our island boy, who we kept down here for a while. Wait, is he still? Wilson. We named him Wilson. Wilson! Hey, it's Wilson! Wilson is right here working the toll. Look, Wilson, we hooked you up, man. You were out there stuck on an island. We got you out here. You're chilling. You got a job here working at the stadium. You're doing all right. Good job, man. You're doing great. You're doing good. Okay, let's talk about one of the more intimidating projects. And no, I don't mean that, which was crazy intimidating. That one took forever to make. This one, actually. So this was one of the buildings I knew I wanted to make early on. It was actually one that I designed prior to the beginning of the season. But I was kind of intimidated about it because quartz is a very expensive block, especially when you're wanting to do quartz bricks. And so this was one I was very nervous about because I knew that while I did want it early on, that it was going to take me a while to get the resources to make it happen. Also, I was a little intimidated by it because I didn't know what to do with the interior. And as you can see, I turned it into kind of a copper aging area, which worked out okay. I used this quite a bit as the season went on. But at the same time, you know, I mean, we got floating dirt, we've got holes. It's, yeah, from an interior standpoint, there's just not a whole lot going on. But I do like the building a lot. It looks very, very much like my old studio back in Jackson, Mississippi. And so it is really, really nice to have this here in New Yorktown. Okay. All right. I mean, so there's some other things we can talk about, right? Like the coffee shop, where I actually am very proud of how the interior turned out, as well as this little back patio area. Yeah, I'm very pleased with this. We can also talk about the House of the Dragons little mini game I created for some of the Batcrafters. I don't even remember if I put this on the video, but basically I hid some dragon heads around New Yorktown and put a little, scavenger hunt out there for the Batcrafters, and the first one to find all three would win, and I believe Knight was our winner. He was able to find all three of the dragon heads that are scattered about New Yorktown. We could also talk about the cat Easter eggs that I have around New Yorktown. This one is Gigi, who can be found at this little bakery here. I guess technically a bar, but I was going to decorate this out as a bakery and put bread and everything else, and we had Gigi. If you know the reference, put it in the comments, and good for you. And there's other cats like that are kind of scattered about New Yorktown with significance. For example, at the trolley leading to Gotham, we have Selena. And then, of course, at the Orpheum Theater, which we were about to talk about, we have one of my personal favorites, even though I'm not a huge fan of where this reference comes from, Gus. So there you go. If you know why that's all three of those are significant, if you can kind of piece that together and you get the reference, put it in the comments, and then you will be the winner of this minigame that I never got a chance to actually put out to the Batcrafters, but they are now for you, dear viewer. Enjoy. Oh, yes, the Orpheum Theater. Okay, so many buildings. I mean, look, I'm proud of all of this. I'm proud of all of this. This was one of my favorites. That one's one of my favorites. The Orpheum Theater, though, come on. I have this dream of having my own little theater one day, and this right here, this is the name. There's nothing little about the Orpheum, but man, oh man, using the Orpheum as kind of my storage system and ultimately really kind of the heart of my base as a whole was perfect. I love this design. This was so fun to come up with and creative, and I'm just shocked that it translated as well as it did here in Minecraft. Now, originally, you kind of have to cast your mind back, but this was all flat, right? It didn't dip down. We didn't have a stage or anything like that. And my goal was this was going to be a massive storage system. It was going to be an auto storage system wrapping around here and wrapping around the top as well. I was going to have this whole redstone system where I come in, I basically stand right here, I put all my stuff in, and then basically it feeds around. But I didn't want to do that. And I didn't need to do that. Like, the storage system is like such a cool thing. And if it's something that like is second nature to you in Minecraft, by all means, good for you. And please continue to do that. I have found that it does not help me. I end up, I never have too much of a mess when it comes to chests or anything. Like, yes, pay no attention to that. For the most part, I'm actually pretty good at organizing it. And with the way that I did play Minecraft this past year and the year before that, I was able to kind of do it in the background. I could sort my items in the background while I was working on other projects, and it actually worked out pretty well. So I just didn't need an auto sorting system, and I'm super glad that I didn't, because it allowed me to come up with this right here, which is an actual theater inside the theater. We got a stage. We got Bruce over here who's reading. What are you reading, Bruce? Right. He's reading a play that I think Knight came up with. I think this is like a wholly original Knight show right here. This is incredible. I need to understand this. He put the King in Yellow up front, and I thought maybe that might have been a reference to, the Earth to Me coming, but honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I think this might actually be a full play that he did, which is pretty sweet. Bruce, you're the main. Ow. Okay. Wow. Yep. You know what? You don't want to mess with the talent. Okay. Bruce is a diva. You're a diva, Bruce. Okay. But anyway, so I love this. I love this design. I'm so proud of how it all turned out. I was so, sometimes you get ideas for something that you're working on and your just creativity fires on all cylinders. And that is exactly what happened here. One of my favorite innovations with all of this, aside from just the mangrove kind of giving some cool texture and that like old carpet feel, is the curtains right here using these like nether, typically nasty bricks. They actually look like a perfect shiny red curtain on either side of the theater, and when you kind of do the back and forth, it gives it that ruffled feel, and I just love this. This just looks so good. A nice little touch as well, and one of the reasons why I wanted those back buildings there is so that when I came back here and I looked out the windows, before you just saw nothing but sky. Now, you might not even pay attention or notice, but you've got buildings back there, and as you move around, the city feels very lived in and seen, and it just looks really great. Even the stadium is back there as well. In a season with so many of my favorite builds ever, this probably is like my all-time favorite. Like this really is just an absolute triumph in my opinion. Like I really just love how it all turned out. All right, a couple other little touches to make mention of. Oh gosh, I know this is running longer than I intended. Okay, so the Heroplex. Talk about that in a second. We had the Fox mural right here, questioning as to whether or not Fox is a hero. I thought that was kind of a cool way to play around with the concept. That I wasn't actually sure. There's things to talk about like the stories and some behind the scenes and that sort of thing. And I'll probably put out an epilogue in the coming weeks that kind of goes into some of that. But one of the things I wanted to kind of play off with is whether or not Fox was a hero or not. As you recall, he may have saved our city from a attack of pillagers, but there's question as to whether or not he was responsible for putting it there in the first place. So that was kind of fun. And then, of course, our plane referenced earlier from the Cold War. This was so cool. There was a massive, ugly platform. Yeah, I said it. An ugly platform that was up here and quite functional for our boy Will, but quite an eyesore for myself. Whoops. And so we had this kind of fun back and forth trying to figure out like what we were going to do about it. And like, I booby trapped it and everything else. And it was great because like with that, I actually had a couple of weeks where I was going to be traveling and I needed some to kind of stretch content a little bit. That's kind of some behind the scenes for you. But regardless, the great thing was I never told Will at first what I was doing, and he was a little like perturbed originally. And then once he found out, like he had a lot of fun with it too. So it was great. And the plane works really well. Like I wanted it to be thematically correct for both of our cities. You think about like someplace like Disneyland, where they've got like the Star Wars land and then the Adventure land. I think it's our Frontier land right next to each other. They have to build structures that fit into both as you kind of blend the two areas. And so that's essentially what I wanted to happen with whatever we were going to put right there. And man, oh man, the fact that he even like did a wraparound airport just adds to that whole feel. I think it's great. We also had encourage folks to create some graffiti in the area. I think that's fun. Very nice. We have mustache. We've got ha ha ha. Eobard was right or evil. Who knows? And then the king in yellow signal or symbol as well. That just you know what? That just feels right. That just feels right. As I'm picking up my items right now, I'm realizing I'm remembering a science experiment I did a while back, which was I was curious, given some of our antics from previous seasons, what would happen if I unleashed a wither in New York Town, and the lag. Like, look, when we did it in Central City, it was absolutely insane. Like the lag was insane. When I attempted it in New York Town, just me. Not even on this, a connected server, it almost crashed the computer. Part of that is just because of so many items that were in the theater, and I literally unleashed it inside the theater. But man, oh man, it was crazy. So yeah, we're probably no Elseworlds. I think this time. I think the what if is what if we just quit while we're ahead? I think that's the what if this time around. Heroplex. So wow, okay, this was a building. What was this building? I came up with a version of this in creative, and I never really knew what to do with it or where to put it, and so I was like, what? Well, hey, let's turn it into maybe this hub in New Yorktown for the heroes. It's kind of a fun way to showcase, the members of the League of Heroes here, even our recruits as well. We never got a chance to use this, though, for the story, which is unfortunate. I really had kind of some interesting ideas. I thought about maybe kind of having this room as something of an interrogation chamber or something like that, possibly doing a training situation upstairs. Oh, man. And I'm just now realizing that my passcode to get in the League of Heroes isn't here. It's actually back in Gotham, in the original location. So as I mentioned early on, this was a really tough seed to work with. I was so nervous about trying to find a good seed and find a good location. There was all the confusion around the various versions of Caves and Cliffs, part 2. And one of the things I really wanted was to showcase in our main area a bunch of the caves and the cliffs. I wanted that. I wanted something like that to be pretty epic. And I liked the idea of a city that was surrounded by mountains, even if that didn't necessarily fit Gotham per se. So it was kind of this balance of trying to fit what would make sense for Gotham, in the caves, but then also what could showcase what Minecraft was with the new update, with the cliffs. And so we actually had what I thought was a perfect seed. And then, they changed everything. They kept on changing everything constantly. And so we finally the update came out and we didn't have the time to really search. And so we're just like constantly like, bouncing around from seed to seed to seed. And then finally, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Fox, maybe it was Snow, but somebody was just like, you know what? Just pick one. We're all going to have fun together. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I really appreciated that. That took a lot of stress off of the whole finding, getting a started process. And while it did kind of create some unique problems along the way, look at this building right here, trying to bridge the two, leveled areas together. I really think this actually, the challenges kind of created cool solutions. And so I'm pretty pleased. Now, the lot ended up being something I was super proud of. I wanted a shop this year and this season to be something kind of akin to what I did with the mall at the end of season 2. I really wanted there to be, or I should say Earth 2, I really wanted to have a situation where I could add a lot of little mini shops in the area and really get creative on the design for each little shop, kind of like I did with the mall at LexCorp Plaza. And vehicles seemed like a really cool place to do it. Do it like a farmer's market, put up a little lot. It'll be great for kind of the whole Gotham motif. And since I was doing my own city, I could kind of use the designs in both places. And I think it really turned out great. We got the rockets selling in the rockets selling a hot air balloon and the trolley and, the helicopter and that sort of thing. At some point, it's like, all right, I'm running out of space. So I just need something that can be a catch-all for any new items. And that's what our prime vehicle became. Now, Earth 2 Me was able to do a couple of enhancements around the town, bringing things a little bit more unified, as well as this area for the Charity Syndicate of Earth 3. This is, essentially just a gambling. It's meant to be kind of this combination, kind of a bait and switch, if you will. I mean, it was a little obvious, I think, right? Like, basically, we had created this cool harvesty feel that was good for both Halloween and for Thanksgiving, which was kind of the season where that story was going. And, kind of welcomed you into like a farmer's market type of motif. But ultimately, it was a casino. It was just a casino. It was just gambling. Okay, that's all it was. It was gambling. It was just tricking people. There was some good rewards. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like, totally evil or anything like that. But it was a little bit, thematic Vegas style gambling. I think that's kind of fun. We had the Lotco building over here. I did think it'd be kind of fun that if, once Earth 2 Me was here, if this became from Lotco to LexCorp. It was kind of a way to remake this sign and make it fit. And I thought that would be kind of cool. But suffice to say, we took things in a different direction. And speaking of stories that changed, we can't not just address this, right? All right. So if this doesn't look familiar to you, this is the ruins of camo. As you recall, we came in here. There was a big camo eye that was, instructing different people to bring netherite in here. And this was wonderful. This was kind of a fun little mini game that I created for the Batcrafters that served a few purposes, not the least of which was that I knew once Earth 2 Me got here that I would need some netherite, but I was trying to remain netherite free, as a hero. And so this was kind of a fun little storyline that, honestly, we didn't really even this was actually going on for quite some weeks, a lot of weeks before I actually even showed it on my video. And it was something that, kind of little plot lines, little stories for the other Batcrafters to participate with if they so choose. I really enjoyed doing that. I know that it was a little disorganized and it required a lot of thinking on the feet and changes and being willing to change storylines because it did kind of open things up for people to interpret and engage with however they wanted to. There was so very little planning, and I think that kind of can become a bit of a problem, maybe even a bit of a frustration to some. But it did allow for a lot of organic stories to come along. And so I liked seeding out little stories like this one in the background for different folks to engage with. And then, bringing them into my storyline when it made sense to. In fact, Nexus Peak as a whole, I feel like changed so many times out of different people doing different things with it. And then it was kind of like, okay, well, this is kind of like a hodgepodge, but like in the best possible way. There we go. Trying to get a good angle on it. There we go. So we had Nana Parbot, then we had camo on top of it. And even before all that, we had the block of power. And of course, ultimately, this is where OMAC launched from. And yeah, it was it was wild. Some of my more bolder secrets, putting the Court of Owls right here was interesting. Oh, that's not the button. That's the button. Yeah, putting the Court of Owls right here was kind of, it was a bold move. But I'm glad that this was a lot of fun. Man, Will was always like one, two, three, four, five, 6 steps ahead of me throughout a lot of these different stories. It was very interesting. There is something to be said for doing a lot more planning as it relates to stories like the ones that we've done. And I think, honestly, it's probably what I would recommend most people doing. But I also really like the fact that I can kind of surprise my fellow players. And, sometimes they figure it out. But the act of figuring it out is part of the joy of playing. Or at least I hope. I hope that's how people feel. And of course, we come to the League of Heroes, the original base that, I was kind of going for more of a Justice Society, more so than a Justice League type of feel. It was really great because, as you saw in a previous video, you actually use a little end pearl that you throw through here to arrive into it, as we did our best to keep things secret. But ultimately, as found evidenced by our giant mustache out there, everybody found us. Everybody eventually found us. And, that's okay. That is okay. It was fun. It was a fun little secret while it lasted. Oh, Evidence. Hey, Evidence. You know what? Evidence, you've done so good. I am making you the new leader of the League of Heroes. So congratulations. And do your best to protect Earth 3 for me. This was a lot of fun, though. The goal was, of course, that I wanted to create I thought it'd be kind of fun if we had like a team of heroes and a team of villains and that sort of deal. And so, kind of speaking more to that, didn't quite really plan or communicate anything, just wanted to see what would happen organically. I created a team of heroes, but we never really got a team of villains, or at least not until, I became the villain. But you know what? It was fun either way, and we had a lot of fun with it. But with all that said, I do think we are now coming here to the end. Y'all, this was so much fun. I want to say a very special thank you to all of the Batcrafters for giving their time and their creativity to what has been an amazing year. This was such a fun project, and with all of its ups and downs and otherwise, I just want to thank you all, each individually and as a group, and just say, whoop, y'all are amazing. Thank you so very much. Thank you for everybody who watched and enjoyed this. And I be sure to check out the TV Talk podcast. I'll still be putting out those minis and everything for some of your favorite shows. But for right now, that's going to get us. That's going to do it for us. There will be an epilogue episode to share perhaps some more behind the scenes about the stories and things that we came up with, but also because the Riddler has apparently stopped by Arkham to create an escape room. And, I really want to do it. I really want to do the escape room. So just like we did last season, we're going to have an epilogue with a little bit of some fun. And look for that here in a future video. And until next time, goodbye.